These celebs don't take a roof over their head for granted. Today, we're counting down the top 10 celebs who have been homeless. As a teenager, Jim Carrey and his family became homeless after his father lost his job. Jim, two of his siblings, and his parents lived in a tent in a park in Lincoln, Ontario, Canada for 8 months. Jim's dad ended up getting a job at a tire and wheels factory where Jim and his brothers worked as janitors in exchange for housing across from the factory. Jim said, "A lot of people don't know this, but when I was about 14 or 15, my father lost his job, and I actually became homeless for quite some time. Of course, I grew up in Canada, so I had thought we just had gone camping." Hilary Swank and her mother moved to Los Angeles when she was just 15 to chase her acting dream. They lived in their car for the first couple of weeks in the city before crashing at a friend's house. In 2005, Hilary told 60 Minutes, "We had a friend who was selling their house, and so they said, there's no furniture there, but you can stay there at night. And then during the day, you have to leave so we can try to sell it. So we got air mattresses, blew the air mattresses up, slept on the mattresses, and then left in the morning." After a few months, Hilary began booking roles, leading to them being able to afford housing. Instead of attending college, Jennifer Lopez wanted to pursue dance, something her mother didn't endorse. Jennifer left home and spent nights at the dance studio where she practiced. She booked her first dance gig in Europe, with her career taking off not long after. In 2013, she told W Magazine, "I started sleeping on the sofa in the dance studio. I was homeless, but I told my mom, this is what I have to do. A few months later, I landed a job dancing in Europe. When I got back, I booked In Living Color. I became a fly girl and moved to LA. It all happened in a year." Sylvester Stallone sold his script for Rocky for $1 million. But before that, he was another person struggling in New York City. He sold his dog, Buttkiss, for $40 to afford food, and he'd sleep outside. Talking to journalist Kirsten Flaw, Sylvester said, "I had this one coat, and that one coat literally was my house. And I would sleep at the bus station, Port Authority bus station, or outside the post office in the dead of winter. And boy, it was cold. So that coat saved my life." Early in his career, Steve Harvey was living gig to gig out of his car. At the time, he was separated from his first wife and giving his income to his 2 young kids, as he was out trying to make a comedy career happen. After a couple of jobs didn't work out, he had nowhere to go. In 2013, Steve told People, "1 or 2 gigs fell through and suddenly I was homeless." He added, "It was so disheartening. A week is really the maximum you can do. This was 3 years. It was rock bottom. But even in my darkest days, I had faith it would turn around." The host was living in his 1976 Ford Tempo when he booked a gig at Showtime at the Apollo, which launched his career. After earning money from being a model, Halle Berry moved to New York City. But after 3 months, her money ran out. She called her mom for help, but her mom refused, leading Halle to live in a homeless shelter. In 2017, Halle told People, "That's probably one of the best things my mother did for me because it taught me. My mother said, if you want to be there, then you be there. You work it out." And I had to work it out. She added, "Giving up was never an option. It took me right back to my high school years. You say I can't? Watch me. I'm going to figure this out." And shelter life was part of figuring it out for a minute. Rose McGowan's parents were involved in the cult Children of God, where she lived in Italy until she was 10. By 15, she was emancipated and staying in a room at her friend's house. Talking to The Guardian in 2019, Rose said, "By then I was living in the back room of a friend's house in Hollywood and had about 25 cents to my name. So I represented myself in court. I needed to have control of my own life." She added, "Being homeless again was always the biggest terror for me. So I took my first acting job." When the future James Bond, Daniel Craig, was 16, he was accepted into the National Youth Theatre and moved to London, England. He worked part-time in restaurants as a waiter to pay for his schooling. At times, he couldn't afford housing, so Daniel would sleep on park benches throughout London. He also stole from supermarkets, saying, "By the way, I only stole from supermarkets that could afford it. I want to make that perfectly clear. But we didn't have anything to eat, and we had to feed ourselves." Tyler Perry is one of Hollywood's biggest names as a jack of all trades. But long before Medea, he was living in his Geo Metro for 3 months. He self-funded his first play, I Know I've Been Changed, which didn't work out. He would rework it until it did. Writing on Facebook in 2019, Tyler wrote, "Atlanta has truly been the promised land for me. I came here with nothing, lived off Sylvan Road, ended up homeless and starving. But I was always praying and believing. I was always keeping the faith, knowing that if I worked hard, did my absolute best, kept my integrity, honored every blessing, and remained grateful through it all that everything would work out, and it has, thank God." After graduating high school, Chris Pratt moved to Hawaii to live on the beach with a former classmate. In 2022, Chris said, look, man, I'm going to buy a one-way ticket to Maui. I've been living there since high school. It's awesome. We sleep on the beach. It's super fun. Chris took a job at Bubba Gump Shrimp Company while living on the beach. He added, people say homeless. Living in LA, there's homeless people everywhere. It's just destitute people. We were just a bunch of kids living, camping on the beach for a year.